Welcome back, folks, to my WrestleRant video series where I give my in-depth analysis of all the pay-per-views that I watch in the WWE Network. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'll be talking about every installment of WWE Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday, spanning from 2004 to 2008. This will kind of kill some time before I get into my Survivor Series reviews, TLC reviews, Royal Rumble reviews, Elimination Chamber reviews, and of course, WrestleMania. Every single one, 1 through 30, baby. I'm reviewing every single one that I haven't already. I think reviews for 17, 19, 20, and 21 are already up here on the channel from this past year. But anyway, I digress. Getting to Taboo Tuesday 2004. Taboo Tuesday was a very interesting concept because it was the first pay-per-view, aside from Tuesday in Texas, to take place on a Tuesday. I don't know what really led to WWE doing this. Maybe they thought it would be an increase in buy rate because of Sunday Night Football. People weren't going to buy the show on a Sunday. I'm not really sure because this took place in, I think, November. Let me just double check right now. No, October 19th. But it was around football season anyway. But anyway. So maybe that's why they did it. I wasn't exactly sure. I did not do my research on that. I apologize for being a poor journalist. But yeah, I never really found out why they chose to do Tuesday. Probably because they wanted to kind of test things out with the pay-per-view buy rates and stuff like that. But like I said before, this only really spanned from 04 to 05. Before going back to Sundays. They would keep the whole voting process, but did they vote for it to be on Tuesdays? Because when I play the SmackDown versus Raw games, and I mean it's always Sunday in the game, even though it's called Taboo Tuesday, it's kind of asinine. But they always say, oh, the fans voted for it to be on Sunday this year. So did they vote for it to be on Tuesdays? I'm not really sure. And I was also kind of interested in how would that kind of play out with these SmackDown tapings, because wasn't SmackDown still taped on Tuesdays at this point in time? And this kind of took place on a Tuesday, and this featured. I don't think this show featured SmackDown stars, but I think next year did. But I don't know. But I was just curious about that. But anyway, there's some things to think about. Taboo Tuesday 04 kicked off with the Intercontinental Championship on the line. A slew of superstars being voted in to be contending for that IC title against the then champion Chris Jericho. Shelton Benjamin won the voting poll and beat Jericho for that IC title. And a bunch of the people that were up for the vote were like no-namers, jobbers, and all kind of shit like that. So it seemed like a wide variety of superstars, but WWE going into the show probably knew that Benjamin was going to be voted. I mean, I don't want to say that 04 was the year of Benjamin, but 04 was a great fucking year for this guy. When he went to Raw and beat Triple H on a number of occasions, had those great matches with Chris Jericho, as we saw here. The match with Shawn Michaels wouldn't be until 05, but 04-05 were like the fucking prime years of Shelton Benjamin's career, and he would be with the company for another 5 more years, and they never really utilized this guy correctly. I don't know if he could have been a world champion. His mic skills were not great. But he definitely could have been utilized better than what he was in his later years with the company. But anyway, great matchup to kick off the show between Benjamin and Jericho. A very nice IC title win for Shelton Benjamin here. And Jericho dropping the strap. He would leave WWE about a year later. But I think even Jericho talked about this match in one of his books, if I remember correctly, his second one. I don't remember what he said exactly, but I do know he said he had a good match with Shelton Benjamin. He always enjoyed working with him. And I'm not surprised. This is a very good matchup to kick off the show with Shelton Benjamin being crowned the new Intercontinental Champion. So up next, we had a Fulfill Your Fantasy Battle Royal for the Women's Championship. Now, this was kind of, this would set the stage for these kind of matches for almost every single fucking Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday. Now, I love women as much as the next guy. Don't get me wrong. I love the divas, love the sexy, powerful, intelligent, whatever they call them nowadays, whatever the tagline used to be. I love that as much as the next guy. But every single women's match on these shows on Taboo Tuesday, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, whatever, it's all the same shit. And after a while, I mean, you don't really notice it watching it on a yearly basis, but after I watched every single one of these in a row, I'm like, can we just stop with this shit already? Because it wasn't even a battle royal. It was nothing wrestling oriented whatsoever. And I like a little entertainment in my wrestling as well, but this was not entertaining at all. Trish Stratus won. She retained her women's championship. I mean, like I said before, it was great to see a lot of these women. Molly Holly, Victoria, Stacey Keibler, Nadia, Jazz, Gail Kim. It was all great to see them dressed up in these skimpy outfits and whatever. But, I mean, there's no wrestling. It was it was hard to watch. It was pain-inducing to watch. I mean, it was a pleasure, and it was also painful. So, you kind of get both sides of the spectrum in this matchup. But, bottom line is this. Trish Stratus retained her women's championship in this contest. Up next, we had Gene Snitsky taking on Kane. It's funny to even watch this matchup. It was a weapon of choice contest. So, the funny part about this matchup, I mean, it's funny looking back on this now because, being the fan of, starting to watch in 2008 was when Jobber was essentially, when Schnitzky was essentially a jobber in WWE. He would be released by, I think, late 08 or 09, or I think it was late 08. But around this time, they were really pushing this guy. They gave him a big feud with Kane on Raw, which also involved Lita and the whole kicking of the baby thing. Who can forget that? And his, run on ECW a couple years later. So they obviously had big plans for this guy at one point, and I think they kind of dropped those plans and maybe in favor of Umaga or whoever else. But he was being pushed at one point, and that point came on this show when it's feuded with in his match with Kane. Definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Some clunky points, but it was a decent match for the most part. I mean, on paper, it's not the greatest wrestling technical contest of all time, but it was a lot better than I thought it'd be. It was a fun feud while it lasted, but it was, like I said before, it was just kind of shocking to see Snitsky in this kind of role, considering where he was only years later. I don't know why they lost their faith in this guy, but he doesn't even look the same. They had him shave his head. They had him shave the eyebrows. He looked like a fucking monster when he left in when he left in 2008. Maybe that's a good thing, but he looked so much different from 04 to 2008 when he left. It's just mind blowing. But up next, we had Eugene taking on his uncle Eric Bischoff in a choose a loser's fate match. So the match itself lasted all of 2 minutes. It was a lot of pre-match bullshit and all that kind of stuff. So just a lot of shenanigans also involving Jonathan Coachman, who would be a big part of the Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday events, as well as Todd Grisham. I think Jonathan Coachman on this show, and it was annoying because they would always, before the matches, they would reveal the stipulations that the fans voted. They would get what the fans in attendance wanted. Like, they would, span the audience like, what would you want to see? But in the end, like, who gives a fuck what they want to see? It's all about what the fans online voted. So that was kind of a waste of time. But I think Jonathan Coachman, if I remember correctly, and I watched his pay-per-views like a month ago, so my memory is kind of shaky, but I think Jonathan Coachman hosted this show, and then every other installment after this would be hosted by Todd Grisham. Every installment, like Taboo Tuesday 05, and the rest of the Cyber Sunday pay-per-views from 06 to 08. So Todd Grisham was also a very big part of the Cyber Sunday and Taboo Tuesday shows while they were in existence. But anyway, though, match lasted all of 2 minutes, and after the matchup, Eugene shaved the head of Eric Bischoff to reveal that he was dyeing his hair. So that was a big comedy moment. So this was, it was dumb fun. It wasn't, anything spectacular, but it was pretty entertaining. And that would kind of set the stage for Eric Bischoff as a bald guy, as the Raw general manager. And I miss Eric Bischoff. I wish he would come back. Maybe not on a full-time basis. I mean, I loved his stint. I mean, I wasn't a fan at the time, but looking back, he had such a great stint. In my opinion, the greatest general manager of all time in Raw history. But I would love to see the guy come back, at least for a one-off appearance like he did at the 15th anniversary show back in 07. And that was fucking 7 years ago, guys. Can't even believe that whatsoever. But and I watched that show, too. I remember I wasn't a full-blown fan at the time, but I did watch that show. Not that segment that he had with Jericho, but I did go back and watch many parts of that show later on. But live, I did watch points of that show. But anyway, though, I digress. That matchup itself, comedy and stuff. But like I said before, bottom line here is this. I would love to see Eric Bischoff back in WWE, if only for a one-off appearance. I mean, he was such a great GM. He was so fucking entertaining that I would love to see him back, especially at a time when GMs are dead now. He doesn't need to come back as an authority figure. Just make an appearance every once in a while. That'd be great, especially now that he's gone from TNA. So up next for the World Tag Team Championships. And now it was revealed shortly before this matchup that... wait a second. It's a dark match. I'm looking at the wiki card here, and I'm like, I didn't see that match on the card, but Sergeant Slaughter versus Muhammad Hassan, but I guess that was a dark match, so of course I didn't know what that was. I didn't recognize it. But anyway, though, before this matchup, whoever the winner of the poll would face Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship that very same night. Shawn Michaels won that poll to face his former foe, Triple H, for that championship. And I'll get to that in a minute. But the other two participants in that poll were Chris Benoit and Edge, and they would go on to win the World Tag Team titles because they didn't win that poll. They were given a World Tag Team title match instead against La Resistance. Now, technically, it wasn't Edge who won the matchup because this was at a time when he came back as a babyface in 04 from neck surgery. He was drafted to Raw. The fans did not really give a shit about him. He got booed more often than not. I mean, he was a cool character and all, but he was kind of stale. So, unlike John Cena, they actually listened to the fans, and they turned him heel. I mean, they did this slow-burning heel turn going into his whole Money in the Bank run in 05, but it was great. Edge played the crazy character very well. And like he said in his DVD, it was kind of what he was feeling at the time anyway, so it was realistic. It was real. So that's what made his character so great from 04 to 05 and his rest of his Ultimate Opportunist days from 07 onward before he retired in 2011. But it was a good matchup. Benoit did most of the work for his team. Edge ditched Benoit, and Benoit would have to win the World Tag Team titles on his own. So it would not make La Resistance look like the strongest tag team champions in history. But it was a fun little twist that would kind of be like a Kane and Daniel Bryan kind of tag team. Now, they hated each other, but they had to work together to keep those World Tag Team titles. So a fun matchup, Benoit, technically, and Edge, your new World Tag Team champions. Up next, Christy Hemme versus Carmella de Crissault. I can't even pronounce her fucking last name. They were both from, not Tough Enough, the Diva Search. And this matchup was brutal. This was a brutal matchup. So to have one Divas matchup on the show was enough with the whole Battle Royal earlier on in the matchup to fulfill your fantasy. Like, I was fine with that because, like I said before, it was fun to see them in their costumes and whatnot, but this was a brutal freaking matchup that the two would have. It was a pillow fight, too. It was a lingerie pillow fight, and that would not make this matchup any better. Christy Hemme is terrible as it is as a wrestler, so this was not the most entertaining matchup. But they got through. It was only a little less than 2 minutes, but God, oh my fucking God, this was awful. But it was just so funny watching this back, and like, this was so atrocious. And I mean, not even watching it back because I wasn't a fan at the time anyway, but such a bad matchup. But yeah, pillow fight, for what it was atrocious. But they tried to make the best of it, I'll say that much. So Christy Hemme goes over there. And up next for the World Heavyweight Championship, Triple H defending his World Heavyweight Championship against the winner of the poll earlier on in the night, Shawn Michaels. Now, I love this feud. I don't know about anyone else, but again, I wasn't a fan at the time. But looking back at their matches from 2002, 2003, 2004, I have to go off on a limb and say that Triple H and Shawn Michaels defined the Ruthless Aggression era from 02 to 05. They had so many great fucking matches. And I mean, Triple H pretty much owned the Raw brand from 02 to 05. He was like the face of Raw for that period in time because there was no one really else. When SmackDown was kind of the diverse brand with so many top faces and whatever. But Triple H and Shawn Michaels were Raw from 02 to 05. And they had so many great matches, and this was one of them. It was a bit boring early on, but it was a good matchup for what it was. Triple H came out on top, still your World Heavyweight Champion, but I loved... this was not one of my favorite matches from the two, but I loved their Hell in a Cell match from the... what pay-per-view was it? From the Bad Blood pay-per-view in 2004. They also had a great matchup at SummerSlam, that goes without saying, at the SummerSlam 2002 show, which I reviewed here on the channel a couple months ago. Go back and check that out, cheap plug. But that was also a very, very good matchup. And this was another good matchup from Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I mean, it only went 14 minutes. I would have loved to see it had gotten more time. You know, take away the stupid Battle Royal and the dumb pillow fight and all that other bullshit and give us a good matchup. And this could have been a bit better, but for what it was, I really enjoyed it. It was a solid matchup. Like I said before, Triple H retaining the World Heavyweight Championship. So up next, the final match on the card. And I found this really interesting that they did the world title match before this matchup. It was Randy Orton versus Ric Flair. Now, this was fresh off of Randy Orton breaking away from Evolution and kind of breaking away from Triple H for the time being to feud with Ric Flair. Nothing on the line. Ric Flair wasn't IC champion or anything like he would be a year later in the same exact matchup, and I'll get to that in my review of the 05 Taboo Tuesday show. But I just thought it was really, really interesting to have to go off the show with this matchup as opposed to Triple H and Shawn Michaels. It was only a 10-minute matchup. They definitely should have gotten more time. It felt a lot... you really felt that it was a short matchup. They definitely should have gotten more time. But for what it was a great matchup. Ric Flair is a blood machine, so it only made sense for him to bleed almost very profusely and almost immediately at the start of this contest. But Orton and Ric Flair had a lot of great matches in 2004 before Orton would go back to transitioning into a feud with Triple H and the rest of Evolution. But a great matchup to end the show on. Like I said before, it was puzzling why this matchup ended the show over the Triple H and Shawn Michaels match. And it was weird, too. Maybe they wanted to go off the show with Randy Orton embracing Ric Flair, because Ric Flair kind of had a babyface turn here, but he would remain with Evolution for the next year until he would face Triple H at the exact same event a year later at Taboo Tuesday 05. And also in a steel cage match. And I'll get to that in my review of the 05 installment, but I don't know, that was kind of weird for Ric Flair to kind of go babyface and embrace Randy Orton, especially being the dirtiest player in the game. And maybe they wanted to go off the show with that feel-good moment, and Randy Orton was kind of on a roll as a babyface at this point in time. But I liked it. It was something out of the ordinary. You did not ordinarily see a blood feud, literally and figuratively, end pay-per-view. So I thought it was great that they gave the spot to Randy Orton and Ric Flair. Nitpicking it a bit in that I think it should have gotten more time. It only went 10 minutes, and you definitely felt the brevity of the bout. But like I said, good match for what it was, and it closed off what was an enjoyable Taboo Tuesday event. So on the whole, I thought this was a good show. Not a great show, but there were a lot. It had its moments. Benjamin and Jericho, a very good opening contest between them. Also new World Tag Team Champions crowned. So we got two new champions crowned on this show, and a new IC champion and a new World Tag Team Champions. Michaels and Triple H, Triple H and Shawn Michaels reigniting their longtime rivalry on the show for the World Heavyweight Championship, and what was a very solid matchup. Orton and Flair also having a good main event inside the steel cage. Everything else kind of left something to be desired. I mean, Eric Bischoff getting his head shaved was entertaining while it lasted. Dragged on for a very long time. That definitely, overstayed its welcome, but that was entertaining. Shinitsuki and Kane, decent stuff. Christy Hemme and Carmella, terrible, and the Battle Royale was terrible. But you skip over that stuff and you kind of look at the good, the positive from the show, and I thought it was a good show. So, replay factor here, I would suggest that you go back and watch a show. I mean, this is before the app and all that other bullshit. I mean, people sent in, I think this show was via WWE.com. I don't know if it was via text. I know some shows would be, but I think this show was via the online voting with WWE.com. So, good show. I would check it out. Good pay-per-view. I mean, it would kind of, set the precedent for what the rest of the Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday pay-per-views would be. But compared to the rest of these Cyber Sunday shows, I would definitely say this was better than those other ones. But I'll get to those when I review them in a couple more weeks. So, with that being said, I'll be back in a couple more days with my review of the 2005 installment of this pay-per-view, Taboo Tuesday. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But in the meantime and in between time, you can follow me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at Graham Jason Matthews. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Like I said before, I'll be back in a few more days with the Taboo Tuesday 2005 review. I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you guys then.